All right, Steve Baczek here with Build Show Network. We're back at the ranch remodel, and we're about to see what I consider what is undoubtedly the most interesting, coolest part of this project. Follow me down the hall. One of the things that we talked about earlier was design intent, right? So imagine you're the homeowner, you're the client, you say, hey, I want this barrel vaulted coffered ceiling, all wood, blah, 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 we're gonna make it look really nice. Well, I wanna be able to appreciate that, and I wanna appreciate it every day. I want my guests to appreciate it. So as I come walking down the hallway here, and I come into the entryway, what do I see? The design intent here was to create that 3/4 height wall with the purpose and the intent of showing off that barrel vaulted ceiling beyond, wherever I am, right? If I come out here into the entryway, any of my guests that come in this front door, they get to see in there, but most importantly, they still get that panoramic view of what I consider the coolest part of this project. So let's take a walk in there and we're gonna talk about exactly what we're doing. So here we are, we're inside the formal living room. From day one of the project, the client expressed the desire to have a barrel vaulted coffered ceiling in her project. She says, I've seen them. She showed me a couple pictures. I said, no problem, we can make that happen. So here's dreams coming to reality, right? You notice that the builders have taken the time. We have this all framed up. This is the skeletal system to that barrel vaulted ceiling. We're gonna talk about the drawings and shop drawings, but this ceiling, if you can believe it, is getting prefabricated in a shop environment and pre-bent, barrel vaulted. It's gonna come here and basically click together in 5 big sections by the builders. But that doesn't mean there wasn't work to do here. You can see the skeleton. We had to level it out, find the low spot, set this all up, record these dimensions, get them back to the shop, because what we don't wanna have happen is you spend all that money, the ceiling comes and it doesn't fit or it's too small, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of planning that goes into this project, but there's also planning from the design perspective that, yeah, we're gonna have this barrel vaulted coffered ceiling. Well, what does that exactly look like? What are the dimensions that are attached to that? What is the radius of this curve? You notice that I chose to have a very low sloping, almost elliptical type curve here. It's not the Roman arch that you might see in a typical barrel vaulted situation. It's really a low slung. And that was very intentional, that I wanted to still create a comfortable environment that I could sit in this room with 4 or 5 of my friends, have a great conversation or have a cocktail party at this house and have 10 people in here admiring the ceiling, but I would be just as comfortable in sitting in 2 chairs here and having a cup of coffee with a good old friend talking about old times in this ceiling. So as a designer, you have to try and create those environments and that intent that the client brings. When I do projects like this, I have my clients write narratives for me as to what they find to be a successful project and how they want it to feel. Do they want it to feel like a very formal environment? Do I want to feel like that kind of, I always jokingly say, that old sweatshirt that we never want to throw away, right? That it's the most comfortable shirt in our wardrobe. It looks awful, but man, there is nothing more comfortable than that. How do I take that information and translate it into a room like this with all this fine woodworking, right? We have this wall, the head wall here, that is going to have a centered fireplace. It's going to be flanked by some bookcases, a pretty traditional view. You notice that there is an old fireplace there that has long been abandoned. Even as part of the remodel, it was buried in the wall. It probably hasn't functioned in about 30 years or so. So that's all going to go away, but on the head wall here, we'll have highlighted a series of bookcases, and we'll look at some of the interior elevations and a really nice landscape-oriented fireplace setting here with a beautiful mantle and some other arches that kind of pick up on the arch, right? As we back up and look here, you'll notice that there's a little indent here in front of this beautiful window. Well, that indent is going to get infilled with a beautiful window seat here. We're going to have some cushions made so that we have that as some additional kind of informal seating for this room to handle overflow, but really to set this area up with some interior design intent as being just a really comfortable place to come, hang out, maybe, you know, grab a seat for a second, etc. But, you know, get that nice view of the front yard here. The wall that we came in on, you know, I spoke of it earlier. Notice that it's about 5 foot tall or so. It's about 3/4, maybe a 60-40 split on the wall. And that was intentional. One, there's a couple things at play. We talked about looking and being able to see the ceiling from the other side. But there's also something nice about sitting in a room that, while the wall, the lower part of the wall here, offers some restriction to what I can see, but the ability to see beyond through these 4 portholes kind of gives me that extension into other spaces and makes this room feel maybe a little bit bigger than it really is.